All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, very interesting news came out of the press conference of the Keith Thurman Tszyu pay-per-view that will be taking place on March 30th. And it came from Tszyu about Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. I think there's some confusion over what he said, but if I read it the right way, I think Errol Spence Jr. is going to get that Tszyu fight if Tszyu fights Keith Thurman. And Terence Crawford, like I said, does not have the options that you think he does. Let's talk about that and what was said by Tszyu in that interview in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and we're going to be in the 154-pound division where things are finally starting to shake out. We're starting to get an idea about what's going to go on this year in boxing. Seems like we're having a little bit of a late start to this year, as in the first real big card is going to be on March 30th, at least in the United States. There is a big fight coming up this month for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, but that will be in Saudi Arabia with Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. But the first major pay-per-view on Amazon Prime with the PBC that many Americans are really looking forward to is the Tszyu fight versus Keith Thurman. And there was an interview in which Tszyu let some information out, and I think people are taking it the wrong way, and I'm going to let you know what I think about it. But before I do, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you're a longtime subscriber and supporter, thank you for your support. It means a ton. Thank you for everybody that supports in the super thanks. Mattio, you my guy, Barbara D for sure, Deborah Booker. But let's get into this as quickly as we can. So Tszyu says in an interview that he was in negotiations with Terence Crawford for a fight, and that then the Keith Thurman was presented to him, and that is the reason. And he moved on and he was like, man, what a great fight. So they wound up fighting Keith Thurman, right? So that would make you believe, rightfully, that Tszyu and Terence Crawford were actually exchanging information. Their teams were talking to each other, trying to make a fight. I don't think that's true. And the reason why I say that is because of something that was said right before that about Erickson Lubin, and how Tszyu said that he believed Erickson Lubin and he were going to fight. But then all of a sudden, here came Keith Thurman. And so when Keith Thurman was announced, and he said that something about Erickson Lubin having priced himself out or something like that, okay, Keith Thurman. So how could you be negotiating with Terence Crawford for a fight next, but you think you're fighting Erickson Lubin? It doesn't quite work for me. Now, I think maybe what they were talking about was that in the media, there were things being said by Terence Crawford, who said his team that said he wanted to fight Tszyu. And so Tszyu's people may have had maybe a couple preliminary conversations or something, but it's not anything that was going to get set on any type of Amazon Prime pay-per-view, because in order to do that, you have to have Al Heyman and the PBC involved in that. And as I told you, Al Heyman and the PBC are probably not going to be going out of their way trying to knock off their fighters, especially one as promising as Tszyu, knocking them off for the sake of Terence Crawford, when Terence Crawford is not committed to doing business with them, right? So what do you wind up having happen? You wind up having Tszyu taking a non-title fight at 155 pounds. Now, if it was the case that Terence Crawford was trying to force the fight through the WBO in his super champion status, maybe that could have been the reason why the WB the WBO didn't sanction the fight with Keith Thurman under the guise of the amount of time that he had off, right? And he says, nah, I'm going to go and do this anyway. Like Al Heyman's going to put me in there with Keith Thurman, and he does that. But I never heard of the WBO actually ordering the fight, right? Even though Terence Crawford is in a position where he can move up and get it. My personal thing is that I think the guy that is more than likely going to get that shot against Tszyu is somebody else that was mentioned in that interview, which is Errol Spence Jr. Now, Errol Spence was on Instagram saying 1 or 2 more, which I'm taking to mean 1 or 2 more fights, and then he's going to be looking towards retirement. That's what I think that means. That said, he's probably going to go for the gusto, and he doesn't want to fight at 147 pounds anymore. So he's going to be at 154 pounds. And Tszyu said he would love to fight Errol Spence Jr. down the line. Now, he also said that he believed that Errol Spence Jr. hasn't been the same since his car accident and some other things related to that. But whatever. I think it would be a terrific fight as long as Errol Spence Jr. is like all the way up and fresh. And also, Tszyu is actually able to beat Keith Thurman, which I promise you really is not that easy a task. I think Keith Thurman is definitely an underrated fighter right now, even though the big issue with him obviously is the fact that he's been off so long, a full 2 years without being in the ring, and he's moving up to fight a guy that has been very active, had 3 fights last year, and is a very big, strong, and skilled fighter in Tszyu. It's going to really take something for Keith Thurman to win that fight. But anyway, it goes. Nah, man, I don't think that Tszyu and Terence Crawford is going to pop off. Terence Crawford is I'm telling you, he's in a funny position, man. He's in a funny position. And he's in a funny position because he is a free agent. And I have made this statement many times before, and I'm going to maintain it, that there is an advantage. There are advantages to being a free agent, and there are disadvantages to being a free agent. Just like there are advantages to being an employee for a company, and then there are advantages for being a 1099. When you are an employee of a company, you get paid even though the work may go down a little bit. Right? And you may not be as busy. You're still going to get that salary. The advantage of being a 1099 is you can go from employer to employer and to employer, and you can get a bigger cut of money than you would be if you're an employee. Same thing applies to being a free agent. If you're not signed to that promoter or you're not affiliated with that platform on a multi-fight basis, you know, if they want to give you a fight, cool. You're in a good position. You got less fees associated with it. You get to decide which fight you want and what fight you don't want and can go to other networks. But if they're not interested in you, then you're not getting anything. And I'm not saying that Terence Crawford's not going to get anything, but you better believe he's not going to be at the forefront of the mind of people that got that many fighters. Anyway, that's my take on the matter. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.